I'm Igor and this is the List Building Lifestyle, a podcast for those who want to build a large profitable email list and make six figures from anywhere in the world. If you would like to get rich by building a large email list while helping people, this podcast is for you. I also invite you to attend a free web class I'm conducting this week to find out how I built a list of 4,331,656 email subscribers at a profit. Secure your free seat at igor.cx. Attend this free workshop to discover an easy way to get 50 to 500 new email leads per day on complete autopilot without losing tons of money. Just go to igor.cx to attend this free web class. And now, once again, it's time to claim your list building lifestyle. Welcome back to another edition of the List Building Lifestyle with your host, Igor Kayfetz. So, did you know that money is energetic, that money actually moves around in a certain way, and you can control it by applying principles to your behavior that will allow you to become magnetic to money? Now, this episode is going to be loosely based on the principles that are described in Dan Kennedy's book called No BS Wealth Attraction in the New Economy. But what I want to touch on are some of the specific principles in my life that have governed the attraction of money. Because, just to put things into some context for you, I was born in a family of a middle-class Ukrainian family, basically. My dad was doing all right by the Ukrainian standards, but obviously I grew up in a very poverty-conscious society. And up until the age of 12 or so, I was literally surrounded by very bad people, very bad habits, and very bad influences. People around me were drinking, nobody wanted to work. Oftentimes, you'd see really good people, honest people, and hardworking people get stuck without a job, without any sort of income. We would see things like, people literally begging for food, right? And that was normal. That was really just normal. Like a normal person, wouldn't be immune to, borrowing money to just buy groceries. I'll even take it to the next level for you, and I know this is going to be really shocking for most of you out there in North America, but a lot of times people couldn't even buy groceries if they wanted to, and even if they had the money, because groceries came in short supply. Like the only thing you could get in abundance was probably bread and butter maybe. That's it. The rest was sort of like on and off. So that means that I grew up in this society where people believed that you're supposed to go to school and study hard and maybe, get some kind of a government job. Like the government job would allow you to have the connections and the paycheck necessary to survive well. That's why my dad spent a long time in the Red Army as a Red Army officer, because, Army took care of its people because it was a governmental body. Now then, the Soviet Union kind of fell apart, and I was born around that time. I was born in '88, and the Soviet Union fell apart in, I think, '89 or '90 or something like that, right? So, the world starts transitioning from being very government conscious and very communism conscious and very equality conscious, where, everybody would get a little bit, but everybody would get pretty much the same stuff. All of a sudden it transitions into this economy where each man and woman to themselves, basically where people took care of themselves and their family, and they would do it even if they had to step over other people's heads, even if they had to kill, lie, cheat, steal, etc. And so you couldn't really survive in that economy unless you were shrewd, unless you were willing to break your moral standards. Oftentimes you had to break the law. Like I'm not ashamed to admit that my dad, when he left the army, when the Soviet Union fell apart, there was no point staying there. He started a couple of small businesses, and a lot of times he had to break the law just in order to survive, because the law was built in a way where it wasn't business friendly, not to mention that, as soon as you started a business, that automatically attracted the criminals, the racketeers, the people who would come to you and demand money for protection services, so to speak. So you kind of had to be friends with criminals if you wanted to operate a business, and you had to literally lie, cheat, and steal, at least from the government, in order to make a living. And, in my dad, again, I'm not necessarily ashamed of this, but I know that a lot of people will disapprove this, but my dad, he would sell things like cigarettes and alcohol, things that I wouldn't necessarily encourage today, but he did. That's how he made a living, because that's what people were buying, which once again tells you the quality of the environment that I grew up in. People would literally get hammered just not to think about their problems, and that was sort of like the national pastime in Ukraine. So over here, in North America, if you're bored, you go to see a show, you watch TV, you got Netflix. Over there, if you're bored, you just go and you get drunk with your buddies, or you just get drunk at home in the kitchen. There's really no limit to how often you could have gotten drunk. And that's why I think Ukraine never made it to become like a proper European country, and it just kind of got stuck in the 1950s or something. And to this day, it's really difficult to live in Ukraine, and that's why my parents immigrated to Israel when I was 12 years old. Now, in Israel, things got a little better, right? Because in Israel, there was a little bit more abundance. People never went hungry. There's always enough food. And, it's this oasis in the desert where, the Israelis built this amazing place where you couldn't have built a country. But the Israelis pulled it off. They figured out, they used technology to pull off amazing stuff. And still, though, a lot of what we consider abundance today in North American society, that's still only available to the privileged people in Israel. And so when I made the transition from living in Israel to now having spent a year in Canada, boy, oh boy, did my standard of living and my definition of wealth and abundance change. In fact, with that standard, my income standard changed as well, because what I thought was a lot of money, what I thought was wealth and abundance, what I thought was amazing achievement is no longer considered so, because I'm seeing people all around me, people who aren't necessarily smarter than me, people who aren't necessarily more proactive, and people who don't necessarily think bigger, but they make more money just because they operate in this society and just because they're connected to other people in this society, and that's how the society rewards people over here. So that's why I kind of got back to the whole idea of wealth creation and wealth attraction, because it is my sincere belief that we all make exactly what we deserve. We all make exactly what our financial thermostat allows us to make, and we control the knob on that thermostat, but most people aren't really willing or wanting to play with it in any way because they're afraid to screw it up. They're afraid to start making less. But, what I feel that everybody should be doing is working towards increasing their financial thermostat and changing their behavior to attract more wealth. For example, one of the principles that is really necessary for you to attract more wealth is basically getting rid of the fear of not being wealthy or not having enough. So going from the idea that money comes in a really short supply, in a really scarce and limited supply, as if it's a zero-sum game, you have to get rid of that notion and accept the fact that money flows abundantly, and it usually flows into the hands of people who already have a lot of it. Which means the moment you start spending more time with people who have a lot of money, it will automatically rub on you a little bit. You will be able to pick up on those behaviors that will allow you to start attracting money as well. Now, another behavior that could really just dramatically and really quickly repel money is making excuses. So I'll give an example. I've had this employee a while ago who, instead of being proactive and instead of trying to show value and trying to basically be of more service, constantly made excuses. That's all he did. Anytime I would ask him to do anything, anytime I would suggest an idea, anytime I would ask him to make a change to his routine, all I got was excuses. Now, the interesting part is that we no longer work together, because usually people who make excuses all day long just don't stick in my life. But what I can tell you is that progressively, for those people, things are only getting worse. So for that employee of mine, things have gotten worse since we worked together. In fact, he can't find a job for the last year and a half. Another friend of mine, who's also a master at making excuses, is perfectly capable of building an online business. Right? However, at the same time, he's even more skilled at making excuses why he can't or why he shouldn't. And as a result, nothing comes out of it, and he's just kind of got stuck in his own little frame of mind, getting back to a job he hates in a life he's unfulfilled with, yet he gets to do what he's really comfortable with, and that is make excuses. And what I really find, and it's a cliche, but it's true, you can be great at making excuses, or you can be great at making money, but you truly can't be great at both. Now, another thing that I noticed about money is that it seems to be attracted not so much to the skilled worker, as we used to think back in the day when as long as you had a profession of some sort, or any kind of professional knowledge, you could probably make a lot of money. And that's what Napoleon Hill said in Think and Grow Rich, right? Or Dale Carnegie. One of them said that professional knowledge is what's going to make you wealthy. Well, what I'm seeing here is that money is not being attracted to the professional. Money is actually being attracted to the celebrity. So it is my belief now. Again, this changed in the last year, but it is my belief now that it is more important to be famous or seen than it is to be a professional. In fact, we could see this principle in action looking at someone like, say, Robert Kiyosaki. So Robert Kiyosaki is seen, right? He's seen everywhere, and he's like this financial industry activist, and he's making a lot of money talking about real estate, educating people about real estate. But I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of people out there who are way more knowledgeable than Robert Kiyosaki in real estate, but they're not making nearly as much money as he does, right? So anytime you're thinking, how can I create more money in my life and my business, as long as you keep that principle in mind and you just create more visibility and more visibility and more visibility, you will most likely create more and more wealth all the time. In fact, my friend Steve Sims is kind of an expert in this stuff. He's really good at creating visibility and presence of an authority, even though in many ways and in many industries he wouldn't even qualify to be an authority. Like, if he goes on to speak to a bunch of dentists or public speakers or real estate investors, he's neither. Right? He's neither. He's not a public speaker. He's not a real estate investor. He's not a dentist. Yet he can easily get in front of them and get on stage and close them as clients. So being seen is way more important than being a professional or to have some sort of a skill. A lot of times you'll see that, right? You'll see people who are seen everywhere, but they don't necessarily show or are able to present any kind of skill set, yet they get paid a lot of money. So that's that principle at work. Yo, it's Igor. If you're loving the content, hop on over to listbuildinglifestyleshow.com for more free training and a free transcript of this episode. Oh, and I'd really appreciate if you logged into iTunes and rated the show. It really helps. Thanks. Today, money is being attracted to the visible, not so much the professional. Now, another really interesting money sort of like attracting mechanism is actually, goes back to email marketing for me personally, because in email marketing, what I learned, and in direct response marketing in general, is that most sales don't occur on the very first interaction. In fact, what happens is most sales occur way later after a gruesome follow-up. I mean, sometimes it could go on for a year and a half, 2 years, sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's 90 days. It really depends on your list and the relationship, on what you're selling, on the buying cycle. But what we can all agree on is that most sales do not occur right away. In fact, only just a tiny little percentage of people will buy from you right away, usually roughly around 2% if we're talking about cold traffic, and probably roughly 10% and maybe up to 20% if we're talking about, like an endorsement traffic. But most traffic will only buy after they go through your follow-up. Now, the same thing happens in every other type of relationship. So if you're looking to get a joint venture with somebody, you'll probably have to follow up. If you're looking to get, an endorsement from someone, you're probably going to have to follow up. And it's going to take you multiple follow-up attempts before you're going to get any kind of an answer. And, with wealth, that's always how it works. Every single wealth building action that I ever took always required some kind of follow-up. And that connects to another principle to building wealth, and that is not giving a fuck about rejection. And this is big. This is really, really big. So same as if you're trying to date women right now, or maybe if you're, I mean, this is obviously, this example is more relatable to guys, but even if you're a woman, just pretend you're a guy for a second. So if you're a guy and you're trying to date a woman or find someone to date, approaching women is a very intimidating thing. And most of the time, you kind of strike out. So you approach a woman, she's not interested, or you approach her at the wrong time, and there's the interaction doesn't have the right energy, or so any time you're getting out, anytime you're hunting, quote unquote hunting, you will always be running a risk of being rejected, and that's okay. And it's those who are okay with rejection, or at least don't let it scar them in a significant way, those are usually the ones who end up attracting massive wealth. Now, perhaps it goes back to the principle of learning through failure. It could be, but it also probably goes to the idea that more often than not, we need to go through a few no's before we can get to a yes. I mean, it is very unlikely for you to strike a yes on every attempt that you make to build your wealth. It just doesn't happen. So that's not a big principle. Now, another one that I was reminded by my wife a couple of weeks ago, she started listening to this great book. It's called The Aladdin Effect. And the book talks about asking, right? So ask for what you want and the universe will present it to you. Now, I'm not a big fan of metaphysics. I'm not a big fan of the law of attraction. And I don't believe that just by asking for something, it kind of magically appears in your life. Like if I'm going to ask for a Playboy model appear in my home office right now, yeah, it didn't work. Okay, it didn't work. So it doesn't, it's not as magical as it sounds. But what I do believe in is setting very specific targets. And what I found this year is I got really good at doing that. I got really good at setting extremely specific targets for myself. And as a result, by knowing exactly where I'm heading, I was able to take the actions necessary to get there, and things just started falling into place for me. For example, as soon as I set an intention to write a book, immediately I was introduced to 3 different professional agencies that helped me with that, and I was also able to score an introduction with another person that basically helped many of my marketing friends write their books. So it was only because I set that specific goal, and now my mind was paying attention to those things in my surroundings. So ask and you shall receive is a very important principle to wealth attraction. You need to ask for it. You need to be very specific about the amount of money you want to make and the amount of time you want to work to make that money. You want to be very specific about the deadline you set for yourself to make that money, and you want to be very specific about the circumstance in which that money will appear in your life. The moment you do, even if it doesn't occur exactly in that fashion, it will still most likely occur if you take action and go for it. Now, another principle that I learned this year as far as wealth attraction is no matter if you set a small income goal or a large income goal, you will most likely invest the exact same amount of effort to try and attain it. So you might as well go for the big one, because even if you don't hit that goal, you're still going to fail into a position where you're like way ahead of the lower goal that you could have set. And I learned that after going after this really, now I look, in hindsight, it now seems like a very modest goal, but at the time it seemed to me like an okay goal. It was fairly ambitious. I knew it wasn't stretching me by any means, but it was enough to make it interesting. So I went for it, and for 3 months I worked really hard to achieve that financial goal. And you know what? I actually did. And when I did, I felt so bad because I realized I've invested 3 months of my life to achieve a goal that was below my potential. So then it hit me, wait a second. So it doesn't matter if I set a goal of $1 million or $10 million. For the next 3 months, I'll still work on that goal. I'll still invest the same amount of hours. I have only so many hours in the day. And as far as the focus, attention, and brain energy that I'm going to put into that goal, it's all going to be the same. In other words, whether you're drawing a big tree on a sheet of paper, whether you're drawing a big tree or a leaf, it's always the same effort. You still have to pick up your pencil and do the brush strokes. So that is why you need to set really big, ambitious, hairy, ballsy goals. Because when you do, again, you'll spend the exact same time and the exact same effort trying to attain those goals, but you will always walk away with more money. So that's a really big principle that I'm incorporating into my life this year. And I'm also taking it not only in the wealth creation department, but I'm also going to be doing it in my personal life, where I refuse to settle for smaller things, small relationships, small experiences, right? So I'm going big this year, and I suggest you do the same. Now, another great principle that you absolutely have to embrace, especially if you plan on making a lot of money, and especially if you're operating in the information marketing world or in the online marketing world, that is, you need to think of value and not time or deliverables. Meaning that you can write a 10-page report that solves a problem, and most people, when they hear, okay, when they decide to sell a 10-page report, they'll try to sell it for $10, $20. The brave ones will sell it for $50 because it seems like it wouldn't be fair to charge $1,000 for something that's only 10 pages long. But the truth of the matter is, it's not really the amount of words on that in that report. It is the value that report brings to the persons. Meaning that if that report teaches how to double your open rates, and somebody who does not have a list buys that report, to them that's probably worth $10. But if that report teaches how to double your open rates, and someone with a list of 100,000 people who's now getting 10% open rate buys that report, meaning that they can go from getting 10% open rate on 100,000 email subscribers to getting 20% open rate on 100,000 email subscribers, to that person, that report is probably worth a good $10,000 over the course of the next 12 months. So that is how you need to start thinking about the value you put out into the marketplace and the value you're buying as well. So a lot of times, what I'm noticing is that people get hung up on the deliverables instead of seeing the kind of value they get from the information, the coaching, the resources, the access, the network they can get, and it stops them. It truly stops them from getting progress in their life. And it's a shame. It truly is a shame. Now, last but not least, another principle to wealth building that I wasn't really aware of consciously until Dan Kennedy kind of pointed it out to me in his book. Again, the book is called No BS: Wealth Attraction in the New Economy. He talks a lot about energy from people. And so another author that I heard talk about this is Robert Greene in 48 Laws of Power, where he spoke about that you shouldn't be spending time with sick people. Meaning that, if you spend time with a sick person, even if you don't get physically sick, you will get sick in your mindset. Their mindset will be contagious and it will put you down. Even if you have this amazing willpower, it will still kind of override your personal preferences, and you will eventually subscribe to that mindset. So what you want is you want to make sure you're physically hanging out with people with high wealth energy and high productivity energy. Because if you spend your time with people with low goals, with low self-esteem, with low energy, with low expectations, right, with low productivity values, then you will not be able to break out of that cycle. It's just impossible to do it. You need the physical environment to make that transition. And that's why I believe that environment, again, especially physical one, environment trumps habits, it trumps willpower, it trumps pretty much everything. Environment is the single most effective way to completely change your game and change your life and change your business in a very, 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 very quick fashion. So consider that and ask yourself, how can you change your environment? Where can you go to hang out with wealthy people who think differently, who have a different, energy values and productivity values, so you too can become wealthy by default. So that covers some of the principles that I picked up this year. Again, my advice to you is go on Amazon right now and pick up a copy of No BS Wealth Attraction in the New Economy by Dan Kennedy. Dan breaks down amazing, just in such a thorough and impossible to ignore way. He's given you 28 principles for you to incorporate in your life to just become magnetic to money. And if there's anyone who's qualified to give you that advice, it's Dan Kennedy. So with that said, thank you so much. Hopefully 2019 is going to be bigger and better and more prosperous for you than 2018 was. And I'm definitely going to be looking forward to getting more feedback and more questions from you guys, because I've been getting so many messages and so much fan mail from you. Some people even send me snail mail and postcards for Christmas. I truly appreciate it. Thank you so much. And until next time we chat, have a good one. Thank you for tuning in to the List Building Lifestyle. Get access to previous episodes, the transcript of today's show, and exclusive content at our website at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. Also, don't forget to claim your free seat at the traffic workshop I'm conducting this week, where I'm showing how I built a list of 4,331,656 email subscribers without losing money, and how my clients are putting anywhere from 50 to 500 new leads per day on their list at a profit without any list building experience. Just go to igor.cx to claim your free seat now.